I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey, you guys. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. So today I have a bunch of stories for you guys. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. At the top, we're discussing the student loan forgiveness plan getting started, getting kicked off. So as of Friday last week, President Biden quietly opened applications for his student loan forgiveness plan. And by Monday, 8 million people had already applied. But things are already hitting some road bumps. First off, some of the people in the most need of help with their student loans are finding out that their loans are simply too old to be part of the program. Long story short, there were different ways of structuring loans back in the day, and some of them, because of how they were structured, just don't apply to this plan. That is the simplest way to explain it. But those who do qualify can cancel up to $20,000 worth of debt. The Education Department does not plan to cancel any of the loans, though, until Sunday as of the earliest. Applications, though, will be open until December 2023. But it's important to note that this program is already the source of numerous lawsuits and much political grandstanding, of course. Republicans make a bunch of points on this subject. So first off, the point that the program is unfair to those who held off going to college because they were trying to be responsible and not take on debt. It's also unfair, they say, to voters who did not sign up to pay for someone else's expensive education. They also point out that this is not a long-term solution, that there's going to be a new wave of students with new waves of student debt graduating each year. What are we going to do? Wave a magic wand and just year after year get rid of their debt? That takes money, and a lot of people are not in favor of spending it on this effort. But on the flip side, Democrats know that this program will help a ton of people in the here and now. Remember, 8 million people applied by the time that Monday rolled around, and the program is just getting started. People who are voters will not forget this, and it will do a lot for them financially and mentally, I'm assuming, as heavy loans hanging over your head are certainly a mental burden to bear. And next up for today, I have sort of a food for thought type story. This is a story that's not like something that's happened, but something that we should like keep an eye on and think out. I'm going to start doing more of these, hopefully. Worries about a World War III, quote unquote, are resurrected with Russia's use of weapons from Iran. So people have actually gotten worried again about a type of World War III brewing. I just wanted to leave this here again as food for thought, but in the beginning of the war between Russia and Ukraine, it was unclear who would jump in and how exactly they would be going about that. It seemed possible that China might align themselves with Russia and then Putin might go nuclear. But as time went on, neither happened, and NATO allies exercised restraint in not jumping in to help at least not physically. So things leveled out a little bit and worry subsided. Ukraine started pulling ahead. But remember how yesterday we talked about those kamikaze type drones that would crash into buildings that Russia just used in Kyiv? If not, for sure go back and listen to yesterday's episode and we'll give you the full story there. But basically, it's coming to light and to everyone's attention that these drones were actually weapons from Iran. And that is fanning fears anew. You see, people are asking the question, what does it mean if those two are teaming up? Economist Nourel Roubini wrote for Yahoo Finance, quote, "In some sense, World War III has already started," end quote. Iran and the U.S. are struggling to recreate their nuclear deal that was upended by President Trump, and they are obviously facing human rights questions with the ongoing protests, as is Russia, as is China. So there's a little team brewing here. And now Israel has said that if Iran goes nuclear again, they plan to attack them. And the U.S. always sides with Israel. So you can see where all of this is headed, not to a good place, nervous laughter. And at the same time, the US and China are kind of locked in this sort of economic war, battling it out for the upper hand in a Cold War kind of fashion. And the subject of Taiwan between the US and China is already becoming increasingly heated due to Nancy Pelosi's visit and so on. And there's a lot of tension just escalating on all these different fronts, but between those key players. In my opinion, somebody had better pour some cold water on all of this before it heats up any further. And next up, I had to use one of my favorite quotes from Grey's. To title this one, "Mama Bears Don't Play Around." Over the weekend, 2 college-age wrestlers went out hunting in Wyoming and had a gruesome encounter with a grizzly bear. They both got away. It sounds like they were hunting when a bear suddenly appeared near them. Somehow the bear got a hold of one of the friends and was mauling him. And that's when the second friend jumped on the bear's back and began hitting him and pulling his ears. The two eventually were able to break free and run for it. They called for help from the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, who immediately got them to hospitals, one via helicopter and the other via ambulance. One friend simply broke an arm, but the other had serious damage done to his face and body. He said of the incident, quote, "I could hear when his teeth hit my skull, could feel when he'd bite down on my bones that they would kind of crunch," end quote. Full body chills on that one. He also added about his friend, quote, "I don't know how I will pay him back. I don't. I owe him everything. We'll be best friends for the rest of our lives," end quote. His friend is quite a hero. Experts gave us these tips on bear safety, you guys. Number 1, carry bear spray at all times when out in the woods and know how to use it properly. Never hike alone. Make lots of noise. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. And lastly, I have 3 somewhat major Trump updates for you guys. So let's jump in. First off, a breakup with Deutsche Bank. So it seems that Trump and Deutsche Bank had an abrupt breakup last year. They were once Trump's biggest lender and kind of banking besties, but they backed him into a quote-unquote managed exit, likely to avoid legal trouble. All of this came to light via Letitia James's recent court filings against Trump. The Trump lawyers essentially ignored the bank for 6 months while he was leaving office. They were likely frying bigger fish, as the saying goes, but still not cool. So the bank eventually had to threaten Trump with default, which would have been public and embarrassing, as Trump's lawyers simply did not provide the financial documents that the bank repeatedly asked them for. They told Trump that he could either pay back what he owes them or face default. He did pay them back all but $45 million over the course of a year, according to Insider, but this ended their relationship. And the reason that Deutsche Bank was really motivated to ask for certain financial documents was because of the investigations that they were hearing about. Certain documents that Letitia James had made public around that time, around the time of the election, made it clear that he was falsifying financial records. And so they asked him to give them correct financial records, and he wouldn't do it. So I think that definitely points to something nefarious going on, because it should be something that should be easy to provide to a bank that you've been working with for years and years. Next step on Trump, Justice Department asked to remove an option of special master from the Trump case. So this is like a game of legal ping pong, you guys, with this whole special master ordeal. It's really hard to keep up with. Things have gone back and forth on it quite a bit. But now, the most recent development is that the Justice Department is asking a judge to nix the special master that is set to review the classified documents seized from Mar-A-Lago. They made their case to the judge, citing, quote, multiple independent reasons, end quote, for their request. They just don't believe, again, for a number of reasons, that this judge was legally allowed to intervene the way that she did. So they're requesting that her decision be overturned, and we'll keep you guys posted on that. And last up for today, the Secret Service. So documents released on Monday showed that the Trump organization charged the Secret Service, men and women in charge of protecting the lives of him and his family, about $1,200 a night to stay in their hotels. This is far beyond government rates and about 4 times what is allowed. In total, the Trump organization made about $1.4 million from the Secret Service as of September 2021. And we only know what was spent up to that time because that's actually where records stop. Sketchy. For sure, sus. They basically now have turned the Secret Service into forced customers because every time Trump or his family stays at one of his resorts, they have to stay there too. What's more, it appears that Eric lied, saying that the Trump organization only charged the Secret Service, quote, like $50, end quote, to stay at their resorts, which is very far from the truth. This was discovered by the House Oversight Committee, whose job it is basically, to summarize it, to keep everyone honest. They look into any spending that might be fishy, and when looking at Trump's spending, they discovered this. But according to House Representative Maloney from New York, who chairs the Oversight Committee, this is, quote, just the tip of the iceberg, end quote. So there may be more to come out yet. Stay tuned. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, keep your face towards the sun and you'll never face the shadows. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfree media today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezik Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour. Broadcasting from Oklahoma.